Hello, everyone, and welcome. And today we are going to be talking about our mini unit project called The Circle of Life. And in our group is Lily Jones, Katie Lanto, Casey Virgo, and Alexis Bow. I contributed to our mini unit project in 3 ways. First, I created a lesson that starts off our topic on life cycles. In this lesson, students also learn that organisms reproduce offspring and that they often resemble their parents. To see this, students will receive pictures of adult and baby animals, and they will be asked to find the matching partner. Then I will teach them the life cycle stages of a human. Then after that, they will work in groups to come up with the life cycle stages through research of an animal on a worksheet that I provide. Then I did the integrated technology portion of our paper that shows how our technology supports the IST standards and the high impact educational practices. Finally, I contributed to the evaluation of our mini unit with my fellow group mates and explained how my lesson could be adapted for virtual learning.
I contributed to our mini unit project by creating the lesson that introduces the life cycle of a frog. Students learn about each stage of a frog's life cycle and will be able to identify which stage a frog is in by pictures. Students will have to place the stages in order by the pictures they received from the teacher. Then each student will have to find their own picture with research to add to a Google slide deck for each stage of a frog's life cycle. I also contributed through the ISTE standards. I helped to identify which standards were used throughout the mini unit and discussed how each standard was brought to fruition in the lessons. Like the rest of my group, I also contributed to the evaluation of the mini unit by altering my lesson for a virtual format and discussing the importance of and relevance of the mini unit.
For our mini unit, I created a lesson about the butterfly life cycle. Students will understand that the sequential stages of life cycles are different for different animals. They will be shown a video about the butterfly life cycle and then given website articles to read to conduct research. Students will then create a trifold on Google Docs about this life cycle with a partner. Another contribution I made was describing our mini unit as a whole. I explained which Common Core standards and assessments we used. Lastly, I contributed to the evaluation of our mini unit with my group mates and explained how my lesson could be done virtually as well as how the mini unit is significant.
My contributions to our mini unit included the final lesson and assessment. It requires the students to work in pairs using their notes and worksheets from the previous lessons. They will create a Venn diagram comparing the new life cycles. This diagram, as the assessment, will show understanding and allow the students to see all of their classmates' work through a Google slide deck. I also explained what high impact educational practices we used throughout our unit. The two main practices were collaborative assignments and basic research. Within this explanation, I provided reasons why these two practices benefit our students and their learning techniques. Lastly, along with my group mates, I explained how I would change my lesson based on different learning environments and its significance.
The Common Core standards we chose for our mini unit was California Grade 2 Life Sciences. Plants and animals have predictable life cycles. As a basis for understanding this concept, students know that organisms reproduce offspring of their own kind and that the offspring resemble their parents and one another. Students also know the sequential stages of life cycles are different for different animals, such as butterflies, frogs, and mice. For our mini unit, we focus mostly on humans, butterflies, and frogs. Each lesson follows at least one section of the standard we chose.
The IST standard that we chose to highlight was Creative Communicator, which states that students communicate clearly and express themselves creatively for a variety of purposes using the platforms, tools, styles, formats, and digital media appropriate to their goals. More specifically, we utilized 6B, which states that students create original works or responsibly repurpose or remix digital resources into new creations. This standard was heavily prevalent in our mini unit by having students create and repurpose resources in various sites such as Padlet, Google Slides, and Google Docs. The other specific ISTE standard that was highlighted was 6C, which states that students communicate complex ideas clearly and effectively by creating or using a variety of digital objects such as visualizations, models, or simulations. This standard was implemented through models and visualizations that were created through mediums such as Google Slides.
Our mini unit integrated two high-impact educational practices, including collaborative assignments and basic research. Each lesson throughout the mini unit uses collaboration among students to complete worksheets, share ideas, and show understanding. These collaborative assignments help students in more ways than just learning content, but also in social skills, listening, and working with English learners or students with special needs. Basic research is presented through the integrated technology. This will help students report information from different sources, organize information in new and meaningful ways, draw conclusions, develop understanding, and strengthen their original ideas.
The technologies that we chose for our unit are KidSearch, Google Slides, education and informational videos and websites, and Padlet. All of these support the Creative Communicator ISTE standards, and some go beyond just 6B and 6C standards that we chose, and can also support 6A and 6B in this standard. Both KidSearch and the educational videos and websites support the basic research high impact educational practice, and Padlet can as well. Since Padlet allows for students to view Padlets from people from all over the world, they can also gain knowledge there. Google Slides supports the collaborative assignments, high impact educational practice because everyone can work on a project together, and so can Padlet because everyone can collaborate and form groups to get answers. The steps that I would take to change my lesson for virtual learning would be that I can still read the Are You My Mother story by Dr. Seuss over Zoom or Google Hangout to start the lesson. Then I would have students partake in the quizzes instead of physically finding their partners to find the animals and baby partners that I would have them do in person. Then I would send students to breakout rooms for their group work where they would do their research on KidSearch to find the animal life cycle that I asked them. And then they would put their answers on a Google slide deck, and then we would come together and do a screen share and all look at each other's slides.
This is how I would have altered my lesson plan for a virtual learning setting. So at the beginning, I would have my students watch the Powtoon video by streaming it through a medium like Zoom instead of having to watch it in person. I would also, instead of having students identify their group members in class, have them be sent to breakout rooms for group work instead of being able to meet together in person. I would also utilize a Google slide deck to create a click and drag effect for the students to be able to sort the stages instead of using pictures. And lastly, I would utilize a shared Google slide deck to post images, and then I would have the Google slide deck screen shared through Zoom or whatever medium that it is I'm using to teach for a presentation.
Here are some steps I would take in order to teach my lesson virtually. First, I would show the video of the Very Hungry Caterpillar to students by sharing my screen through Zoom. I would then have class discussion through Zoom as well. When students are reading and taking notes for research, I would then ask them to mute their microphones and possibly turn off their cameras. When creating their trifolds with a partner, students will be sent into breakout groups, and I would drop into each room to help groups if needed. I would provide students with links to the website articles and trifold Google Doc through our class website regardless of whether this lesson was done in class or online.
Here are the steps I will take for my lesson through virtual learning. First, I will have my students gather their notes from the previous lessons, whether this is on their screen or printed out in front of them. The students will then be put in breakout groups with one other student. The pairs will use a Google slide deck given to them to create their Venn diagram. Once each pair has completed their diagram, everyone can look through the Google slide and find similarities and differences between the partners' work. We will finish with a whole class discussion through Zoom and share what we learned and saw within other partners and their diagrams.
Ultimately, our mini unit is significant because it teaches students the importance of understanding that living organisms undergo life cycles. They can apply this knowledge to any living organism they see within their environment. We believe that this mini unit will make a difference in students' lives because they will understand that they themselves will continue to develop as humans and be comfortable with that idea. Since they are second graders, they made the transition from early childhood to middle childhood, which means that many changes will occur during this period of their lives.
Thank you for listening to our mini unit presentation.